82. I've gained a wealth of experience. But there's one choice I wish I had never made: moving into a nursing home. At the time, it seemed like the right decision. My family reassured me that I'd receive all the care and comfort I needed, so I trusted them. But once I arrived, I quickly realized that the reality was far from what I had imagined. I know many of you might be considering this path, either for yourself or for a loved one. You might believe it's the safest choice, or that it will make life easier. But before you make that decision, I want to share 6 important lessons I learned the hard way. Lessons I wish someone had told me before I moved in. The truth is, life in a nursing home is not just about convenience. It changes everything. And once you enter, getting out may not be as easy as you think. Stick with me until the end, as some of these lessons might surprise you. If you know someone who's considering a nursing home, this video could be just what they need to hear before making such a life-altering decision. Let's get started. Regret number 1, losing my independence. The biggest shock I experienced after moving into a nursing home wasn't the small room, the fixed meal times, or even the unfamiliar faces. It was the realization that I had lost control over my own life. Before moving in, I had my routines. I decided when to wake up, when to eat, and how to spend my day. I could take a walk when I wanted, cook my own meals, or simply sit in my favorite chair with a book. But inside the nursing home, I quickly realized that my time was no longer mine. Everything ran on a schedule that wasn't mine. Breakfast was at a set time, even if I wasn't hungry. Lights out happened at a fixed hour, whether I was ready for bed or not. Want to take a walk? You might need permission, and will have to wait for assistance. Simple decisions like what to eat or what to wear began to feel more like privileges instead of basic choices. I remember my first week there, waking up in a bed that didn't feel like mine. I sat up, stretched, and reached for the book I had been reading at home. But as I looked around the room, it hit me. This wasn't my home. The books, the chair, the little comforts I had spent years collecting were gone. In their place were sterile walls, a bed I didn't choose, and a feeling I couldn't shake. I was no longer in control of my own life. The hardest part was realizing that once you lose your independence, getting it back is almost impossible. You adapt because you have to. You stop questioning when they tell you what's for dinner. You stop asking if you can go for a walk when you want. You learn to fit into their system, but in the process, you start losing yourself. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, are you ready to give up the small freedoms that make life yours? Because once they're gone, you'll miss them more than you could ever imagine. Regret number 2, feeling forgotten. One of the hardest realizations about moving into a nursing home is that the world outside keeps moving without you. When I first arrived, my family reassured me that they would visit often, and in the beginning, they did. My daughter came by once a week, and my grandchildren visited on weekends. For a while, it felt like I still had a connection to my old life. But as time passed, the visits became less frequent. My daughter started calling instead of visiting. My grandchildren got busier with school and work. Holidays were the hardest. Everyone promised they'd come, but somehow, plans always changed at the last minute. Suddenly, I found myself sitting alone in the common room, watching other residents stare at the door, hoping someone would remember them. It wasn't that my family didn't love me. Life just got in the way. When you're not around every day, It's easy for people to assume you're doing fine, that you're adjusting and don't need as much attention. But the truth is, the longer you're in a nursing home, the easier it is for people to forget just how much you still need them. I remember one evening sitting in my room, holding my phone, debating whether to call my son. I didn't want to be a burden, didn't want to remind him that I was here, waiting for a visit that might never come. So I put the phone down, and that's when it hit me. This was my life now, watching the days pass, hoping someone would remember me. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, are you ready for the loneliness? Because no matter how much your family loves you, once you're out of sight, it's easier than you think to become out of mind. Regret number 3, losing my sense of purpose. When I moved into the nursing home, I thought I was just changing my location. I didn't realize I was also changing the reason for my existence. At home, I had responsibilities, routines, hobbies, and a purpose to get out of bed every morning. Even the small tasks, like watering the plants, making my own coffee, or tidying up my space, gave me a sense of purpose. But in the nursing home, those daily rituals disappeared. Meals were prepared for me. Cleaning was done by someone else. The plants, they weren't mine to care for anymore. At first, I convinced myself that it was nice to finally relax. No chores, no responsibilities, just rest. But after a few weeks, I realized something was missing. The days felt long, stretched out with nothing to do but wait. I saw it happening to others too. People who had once been full of life now spent their days sitting, staring, waiting for time to pass. I remember a man named George, 84 years old, who had been a carpenter all his life. At home, he was always busy fixing things, working on small projects. But in the nursing home, there were no tools, no projects, nothing for him to create. He slowly withdrew, his hands, once skilled, now idle in his lap. He told me, "I feel useless." And I knew exactly what he meant. When you no longer have something to care for or work toward, life starts to lose its meaning. The mind slows down, and the body follows. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, what gives your life meaning? Because once you move in, finding purpose is not as easy as just filling your time. It's about holding on to the things that make you feel alive. Regret number 4, declining health faster than expected. Before I moved into a nursing home, I was doing well for my age. I wasn't running marathons, but I could still take care of myself, go for walks, cook my meals, maintain my little routines. But once I moved in, everything changed. At first, it seemed like I was just taking it easy. Meals were brought to me, and I no longer had to cook. If I needed something, I could just press a button, and someone would help. But what I didn't realize was that the less I did for myself, the weaker I became. I stopped moving as much, and soon my legs started feeling stiff. Sitting became my new normal, and before long, getting up from a chair felt like a challenge. I wasn't the only one. I saw it happen to others too. People who once walked on their own now relied on wheelchairs. People who had been independent now needed help with tasks they never struggled with before. The more help we received, the more we seemed to need. I remember Alice, an 81-year-old woman who was once full of life. When she first arrived, she would take daily walks, insisting that she wasn't going to slow down because of her age. But after a few months, she stopped walking. She started using a walker, then a wheelchair. One day, she looked at me and said, I feel like I've aged 10 years in just a few months. That's what it felt like. When you stop using your body, you start losing it. If I had known how quickly I would lose my strength, I would have fought harder to stay active. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, will you still have the motivation to keep your body strong when everything is set up to make life easier? Because once you slow down, getting back up is not as easy as you might think. Regret number 5, the loss of privacy and dignity. Before I moved into a nursing home, I had my own space at home. I could close my door, sit in silence if I needed to, and do things on my own terms. But in a nursing home, privacy is a luxury you don't always get to keep. From the moment I arrived, I felt like I was constantly being watched. Staff came in and out. There were scheduled room checks and shared spaces where I was rarely alone. Even simple tasks like getting dressed or using the bathroom often required assistance. I know they were just doing their jobs, but it was hard to accept help for things I had done independently my whole life. I remember struggling with the idea that I had to ask for permission to do things I once took for granted. Want to take a shower? You might have to wait for help. Need to use the restroom? Sometimes pressing the call button means waiting longer than you'd like. Even meal choices were limited. If you didn't like what was on the menu, too bad. There was also the issue of roommates. Not everyone gets a private room. Sharing space with someone else, someone you didn't choose, can be frustrating. I was lucky to have a kind roommate, but I heard stories from others who weren't as fortunate. Some had roommates who were loud, unclean, or had cognitive issues that made sleep nearly impossible. No matter how much you try to make your room feel like home, it never truly feels like yours. Dignity is something you don't realize you're losing until it's already gone. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, are you ready to give up the privacy and control you once had? Because once it's gone, you can't get it back. Regret number 6, the never-ending wait for something better. One of the hardest things about life in a nursing home is that time seems to slow down. Every day is the same as the one before it, and you quickly lose track of the days of the week. The biggest challenge isn't the care you receive, it's the waiting. You're waiting for your family to visit, waiting for the next event or activity, waiting for time to pass so you can feel something different. But the truth is, waiting only makes you feel more stuck. I remember hoping for some change, something new to break up the monotony, but it never came. Days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months. I began to realize that this was my life now. There would be no more grand adventures, no more excitement. The best I could hope for was the next visit from a family member or a phone call to pass the time. But even those became